Hello again, watching Everard Junction, and this is the first video in the series of the river scene that I'll be working on. Now, in the previous video, the update, I mentioned that I would be altering where the motorway was and doing a river scene in there. I said river scene because I wasn't exactly sure what it was I was going to be doing, but I knew it would involve some water. I thought long and hard about it and decided what it is I'm going to do, and today I've started to put the first bits and pieces in place, and already I'm quite pleased with how things are looking. So if we pan over, we can see the beginnings of the canal scene that I've started. I thought about doing a river, but as some of you pointed out in the previous video, we've got this scenery in the background, and I don't know of any rivers that naturally tunnel underground. However, a lot of canals do, so I thought that to justify the existence of a water scene down here, I would have to do a canal or some sort of stream perhaps that came from a man-made tunnel. Of those two, I decided on a canal. I think it'll be a little bit more interesting and I can use a greater quantity of water. I'd like to get quite a nice water effect down here, and I'm going to be implementing various bits into the scene that are sort of, some you would associate with the river and others are more to do with the canal. Looked at various pictures of canals and particularly entrances to tunnels such as this one, and I'm going to be sort of combining the things I've learned from those pictures into one scene. Okay, we'll start with the most obvious thing. This is the tunnel entrance. I knocked this up this morning out of some plasticard. It didn't take too long to make, and I'm quite pleased with the effect. Obviously it needs painting. It's not painted at all yet, it's just rough. It's just glued in. But I'm quite happy with how it's coming out so far. I might add some more features to it, not too sure yet. This particular tunnel is loosely copied from a picture I found of one in Birmingham, and it's quite nice because it has these this stone effect along the top of the arch, which I thought was a nice effect. So I've copied elements of it, and I think it looks pretty good. The canal itself will obviously be running down here. Ignore this. This is going to be hillside. It's going to be extended and just run down. This will be the sort of walkway that runs along the side of the canal. On this side, the scenery will just flow down into the water, and I'll be able to get a nice effect there. It's basically going to be like a riverbank, effectively, although rather than a river, it'll be a canal that scenery goes down into. So one side will be a walkway, and the other side will just be scenery. None of this is glued down yet, so pop that out. This is what I'm going to be using. This is MDF, and it is, let me just move those pieces. Remember this as being the old station platforms. I kept them because they were nice pieces of material and I thought I could find a use for them, and turns out they're perfect for doing this. So what I'll be doing is gluing this to this base here, and then sealing off the ends. I've already sealed off the other end with that piece there. Sealing off the ends, and then I can fill up this area with realistic water, and with any luck it won't flow out and make a horrible mess. It should be nicely contained. I'll be putting the water in fairly quickly. It's not going to be like the last thing I do. There have been well documented issues with the realistic water, a number of which you guys pointed out to me in the comments on the previous video. First one is that it does seem to react with PVA glue. I know Graham at Lakeside has had particular trouble with the realistic water becoming clouded with what looks like PVA glue. It seems to sap it from surrounding scenery. PVA glue is, after all, water soluble, so it's understandable why that has happened. So I'll be putting the water in near the beginning of doing this scene so that I don't contaminate it with any glues or other adhesives and scenery. Another benefit of doing a canal is it's a fairly straight and uniform thing, so I can have a man-made structure here. Obviously this side will be a riverbank, but I'm sort of minimising the areas where scenery will come down and contact the water. because of those issues. Another thing that it seems to do is it will shrink once it's dry. There's not a lot I can do about that, but I'm hoping that it'll just sit nicely in this very large rectangle. It's a flat bottom and it's got flat sides, so it should sit quite well and hopefully dry nicely in there. So that's where I'm up to so far, and I shall continue with the scene from this point. I'm not sure how long this is going to take me or how many videos it'll end up being, but we'll just have to see how it goes and how far I take things. I've made this little piece which will represent the other side inside the tunnel. I'll pop that in there. And if we bring the actual tunnel, losing some scenery, bring the tunnel back in. It's not a perfect fit yet, as I say. I've only just made this this morning. Right, that's all in place. Good. So this acts as sort of like a support for the other side. And one picture I noticed that interested me was the canal had two man-made sides to it inside the tunnel, but when it came out on both sides, it spread out into more of a natural sort of looking river, where it had a riverbank on each side. Now I'll be representing that on this side by having this flow down into the water, and then the tunnel narrowing back to a man-made type setup, but I will be keeping the walkway on this side just to make things look a bit interesting. Okay, done a fair bit more work today, been quite busy. As you can see, I have started the weathering process for the wall and the tunnel for the canal. It's come out quite nicely, looks nice and grimy, looks like it's been there a long time. Not finished yet, but I will do the rest of the weathering while it is in position. All the work done on that has been while it's downstairs on the workbench, but I've got to the point now where in order to finish building this terrain I'm going to have to join it up to the wall, and the wall needs to have a piece of plasticard put along the back side so it looks good on the other side, and just needs to be glued in. I've done a lot of work on the inside as well. As you can see, it's got a wall that runs down both sides. There's a bit at the back painted black just to mark the end, which you won't be able to see from normal viewing distance. And it also has a roof, which I'll try and get a shot of. It's got a brick roof as well, that's all painted and weathered inside. So what I'll do next is continue this hillside here. I was going to use Woodland Scenics plaster bandage, but I've run out, so I just used traditional newspaper and glue. This is about 6 or 7 layers. It's not quite dry yet, but it's pretty solid. Just need to wait for it to go off completely and it'll be alright. So I need to join it up onto the wall there as well. I've started painting the bottom. I've gone for brown. Most canals, when you actually look at them, the water is very brown. So I'm going to try and replicate that, so I have a brown finish on the bottom here. I'm going to be doing some other effects as well, with a few rocks and things. And I might do some reeds or something along this side, as this side will be more of a riverbank, and this side will be more of your traditional canal with a concrete walkway. I've grassed the scenery at the back there, and just waiting for that fresh bit of ballast to dry off, and then that can be weathered. But yeah, the whole scene, to me anyway, looks believable, looks justified. Canals quite often go through tunnels. I've got a nice tunnel mouth here that's based off of a real one, and you've got the canal running along here, so the canal run along, go into the tunnel and disappear under this scenery, under this hillside. So now the scenery at the back there is justified. As I said previously, if I just did a river, I would have had to either remove that scenery or significantly adjust this area and change the course of the river, which I wasn't prepared to do. So I'm quite happy with how the scene is progressing so far. I think this is much better than what was here before. I've made a piece of wood to go here, prop up the scenery, just tidy things up a little bit. I'll sand this and fill the gaps and give it a lick of paint, make it look a bit more professional. But yeah, I'm really happy with it, it's looking good. It's a nice scene, I think. Here we go, and I've added in the last couple of layers of newspaper up to the end. So I'll let that dry for about 24 hours before I do anything with it. It should go nice and hard. And that's completed this section here, which is good. And I'll finish any work I need to do on the actual tunnel itself with it in place. It needs to be in place now in order for me to actually progress any further. Next thing I'll be doing is getting all this painted. Okay, I've been busy working on it again tonight, and most obvious thing is the hillside has been joined to the riverbed here, or the bed of the canal. I've used a couple of pieces of timber that gave me the right profile, and then just smoothed over the top of it with some polyfiller. It's going to be painted brown when it's dried, but that's still going off, so I'll paint that tomorrow. But you'll get the idea anyway. I used polyfiller because I didn't want to use papier-mâché, because I'm worried about contamination with PVA glue when the realistic water goes in, so it shouldn't react with the rock hard filler. Fingers crossed anyway. The next thing I've added is a towpath which runs into the tunnel. Very pleased with how that looks. If we take it out, it's not glued in yet. You can see it's just a piece of MDF that I cut. It's from the same piece that this is made from. I cut it to shape, sanded the corner, and then what I did was I got some of the Hornby line side fence. Here's what the line side fence looks when you get it out of the box. I've had this for years. I used loads of it on my old layout, so I'm slowly working my way through it on this one. I just painted it white. A lot of pictures I saw of towpaths that had these fences or railings on them, they were generally white. That just adds a little bit of character to things. Pop it in, looks pretty good. So the next thing I'm going to be doing is I'm going to put a temporary piece along here that'll seal this area off from any spillage of realistic water. I'll cut this off, obviously, get the filler painted so it all matches, and then we are ready to pour the realistic water in. Realistic water will be coming in part 2 of this video, so keep an eye out for that, and I will hopefully get that uploaded in the next week or so. I've actually got to order the realistic water and some other materials, so I'll get those ordered, and we should be able to get a canal going.